You have 3 minutes.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. My name is Randy DeFore, and tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a fifth-generation Floridian, was raised just down the road here in this district, an attorney with Fidelity. And 2 years ago, if you told me I was running for city council, I would tell you that you were crazy. So let me tell you what happened. So I did this program called Leadership Florida, which is a program that goes around the state and you learn about the different cities within the state, and you learn about what they do well and what they don't do well. And my biggest takeaway from that experience was that Jacksonville does a lot well. They do amazing, we have an amazing medical community. We have incredible physical attributes with our river and our ocean. We have palm trees and oak trees. Who else has that? But more importantly, we have great people. So I had to ask myself, I had an internal conversation with myself as to how I didn't know that. Where was this inferiority complex coming from? And it was from growing up here, it smelled so bad in Jacksonville. I remember distinctly people saying, oh yeah, I held my nose through Jacksonville. And I had this internal sense of shame about our city, a shame that no longer exists. Our city has come a long way. We're doing great things. Right about that time, someone asked me if I would run for state rep. Just to back up a little bit, I've been on many boards. I was on the JDC, which is the Jacksonville Economic Development Commission. I'm on the JIA-CRA. I was on the FSCJ board, former chair. So lots of boards. So people have seen me at work in a leadership role. And they said, we really want you to run for state rep. And I said, no interest there. I can't really be effective in Tallahassee. And then they said, well, what about city council? And I said, Well, what happened was my middle child graduated right about that time from the University of Virginia. And it was my aha moment. I had been a single parent for many years. I'm now married to the love of my life. But I had worked extremely hard to raise and educate 3 children here. And my aha moment was I had worked so hard to raise this child and educate this child, really for another city's benefit. I started looking around and asking my friends, where are your kids? Are they here? And they were in Atlanta, they were in Dallas, they were in Houston, they were in Charlotte, which is where mine is. I have one here. But majority of them did not come home. And the answer was not because they didn't want to come home, it's because they felt they couldn't find great jobs to come home to. So it was at that point I was like, I'm gonna raise my hand, I'm in. We gotta fight for this city. And there are things that we have to fight and correct in the city so that we can give our children a place to come home to. So what are we talking about? We're talking about safety issues. Number 1, we have a safety problem. This district has the highest call rate in the entire city, 911. I'm having a hard time seeing out there, guys.
That's time.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
You cannot see. You're going to have to come up here.
The lights are on.
Yeah, the lights are blocking.
Can I just quickly, because I couldn't
Sure.
see. All right, so it's safety, it's jobs, education, big problem. We got to be able to educate our children. It's all about having the quality of life for us and for our children. It's about our home and our family. Thanks.
Sunny, you're up.
Hi, I'm Sunny Gettinger, and I first want to thank the Murray Hill Preservation Association and Tony and the Murray Hill Theater for doing this. And also just say, aren't we lucky in District 14 that we're getting to have this conversation? Not all districts are getting to have this conversation, so I think we're really lucky to be able to talk about what our vision and ideas are for Jacksonville and to think about what our priorities are. What really got me started is that discussion of priorities. I was raised in a small town in rural East Tennessee by 2 doctors who I know did not plan to be there for the rest of their lives, but got there, saw a need, and started filling it, started working towards the needs of the community. And that was how I was taught that you live, that when you get there, when you get to a community and it becomes home, then you get involved. And so when I moved to Jacksonville, that's what I did. And I started with the Arts Market, and through the Arts Market got involved in Riverside Avondale Preservation, and when I had my first child, got really worried that not all the kids in this city were getting great preschool education, and so I got involved with the Early Learning Coalition, and as my child started elementary school at West Riverside, got involved with the PTA, and I saw all the things we were doing really well, but I also saw lots of opportunities. In my day job, I worked for Google Fiber, and I worked closely with the city and JEA on trying to bring that project here, and I also got to work with Tampa, so I got an inside look on where we are on infrastructure and systems and permitting and all of those things, and it gave me pause. It especially gave me pause after Irma and Matthew, and I thought, oh, now we know. We've seen where we're vulnerable, and we are going to take those vulnerabilities on. We're going to start working on our drainage issues. We're going to start working on our flooding issues. We're going to think about how we can reduce the risk to our utilities and get a plan for undergrounding. And these big infrastructure projects, they're expensive, but they also create jobs, they increase property values, they give us a lot of opportunity. So when I look around, what I think the reason I'm running for city council is because I believe that cities should just work for us. It should just be easy. It should be easy to know what's going on. You should be able to get online, look up a bill number, and know exactly where it is and who you should talk to about it. It should be easy to know how to fix the sidewalk in front of your house and how to get a bike lane in so that kids can ride their bikes to school. Right now, Jacksonville has so much opportunity, but we don't have a way to make it easy for folks to get in. So I'm working because I believe we should be planning for the next 40 years, not the next 4, and I want to see us make a brighter Jacks for everyone and a city that works for us all. That's why I'm running. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Henry, would you like to go next for us?
Hi, my name is Henry Mooneyhan, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I'd like to thank the Murray Hill Preservation Group for having us out. It's a delight to go around and meet the people in the various parts of the district. I am a native of Jacksonville. I've lived here all my life. I grew up in Springfield, which was a fairly unique historic district at the time that I lived there. As I grew up, the neighborhood got a little worse, and we elected to leave. I married a girl that we went to the same high school. We didn't go together. I graduated a year before she started. We've been married 47 years this coming March 31st. Thank you. She needs a medal. She needs the applause, really. We have 4 kids and 5 grandchildren, and we have a grandchild due in July of this year. And I tell you, grandchildren are just really great. There's no way to describe it. I have spent 50 years in the transportation industry. I was very fortunate early in my career. When I was 29 years old, I was promoted to Vice President of Gator Freightways, and from there, I spent the rest of my career in senior management with various truck lines. I've been the president of another one and a region vice president of Scion Motor Freight. And I did end my career. I kind of stepped down about 15 years before I retired and took a local job, and I retired at UPS as the manager of the freight division over Florida. So I have a pretty good background in business. Transportation touches every single industry in the economy, every one. Doesn't matter if it's financial, banking, medical, if it's an institution, or if it's a warehouse, or if it's a store. Everything that you have on your body tonight at some time was on a truck. And during my 50-year career, I was able to visit a lot of different businesses and learn how they work. And I have a very good idea as to how businesses in general work. And as I progressed in life, I decided that really I have a servant heart. And I wanted to do things that would help the community. And so I decided that I'm going to make a bid for City Council. I'm doing this because I love Jacksonville, I love the people in Jacksonville, and I'm doing this for you. I want to represent you. I don't want to be in a position to govern you, but I want to represent you. With that, I'll turn it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Jimmy, you're up.
Thank you all so much for coming out here tonight. Thank you, Jason, for doing this. You're an excellent artist, though I don't know too many artists that burn too much of their own stuff. So it's pretty unique to find an artist like that. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jimmy Peluso, and I grew up here in Jacksonville. I left to go to the George Washington University up in DC, and then I joined the U.S. Navy. I was a naval officer for 6 years, active duty, and currently now I'm a reservist right here at NES Jacksonville. I came back to Jacksonville after my time in service because I felt like I wanted to be a part of something great. I lived in a lot of different cities during my time. I lived in San Diego, Philadelphia, to name a few, and I saw some of the cool things they were doing, but I felt like Jacksonville has more potential than any of the other cities I've lived in. We've got the people, we've got the weather, we've got the opportunity, and we can do so much good here. So when I moved here, I moved back to Riverside because I thought this was the coolest area of Jacksonville, and I love to represent it. But I've also noticed, and especially during my time growing up here, I kept hearing the same things about the city. Oh, we're going to move up. We're going to be a great city soon. After the Super Bowl, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And all these promises that were made time and time again about where Jacksonville's going to be. And I'm sure some of you have heard the same things too. And at the time, I thought, all right, maybe we're just more conservative. Maybe that's what people thought, and maybe that's what people want. And after leaving and coming back, and after talking with people during this campaign, I realized, no, a lot of people want more. A lot of people want to do a lot more cool things in this city. And so now I'm realizing the reason we're being held back is because the same names and the same faces up at City Hall have been there for the past 20 and 30 years. And we should be looking to get some new leadership up there and make sure that we do things a little bit differently. As somebody who's a little bit younger, but somebody who's also a military officer, I understand leadership. I also worked for the Water Management District for 2 years, and I lobbied up in Tallahassee on behalf of our river and our natural resources. So I understand state government, and I understand local government, and the different things that we can do here. I'm letting you know now that I served for several years as a public servant, and I'm ready to serve again, and I'd love to be your city councilman. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you guys. We're going to move on to the question and answer portion of the evening. First up, we're going to start with Sunny, and you will all get a chance to answer this question. We're just going to start with her. And the first question is, how will you work to reduce both violent crime and property crime in Murray Hill?
So I was out walking this weekend in Murray Hill, and I got to talk to a lot of neighbors about what they're concerned about, and it was interesting because a lot of people were like, well, I haven't experienced it, but I know that it happened, or I've had my car rifled through. I think this question of safety is essential to our city, because if we don't feel safe, if people don't feel safe in their neighborhoods, then nothing else matters. Safety is the base. Police are part of the problem, or part of the solution rather. That is to say that we, in Jacksonville, we average about 1.9 police officers per 1,000, which is under the state average, and it's under our national average. But it's not the whole answer, because police are not crime prevention. They're what happens, they're the people that come and help after. So we've got to figure out how we can address things, and it's going to start from the base up. It's going to start from taking care of our neighborhoods, taking care of our facilities, from organizing as a community, from help and getting into our neighborhoods. One of the things that I've learned as a RAP board member was that neighborhoods need advocates. They need individuals who are looking out for the neighborhood. And that's what your city council person is at its most basic level. And so I think that we have to look for ways for people to be invested and involved in our neighborhoods, in their communities, in their blocks, and to support those types of activities so that we can make sure that we're taking care of each other. We do need a plan to right-size our police force. We know that we're about 400 officers under where we need to be for a city of our size. And you can't do you can't say tomorrow I'm going to bring in 400 officers, because you'd never be able to train them. But we need a plan, a strategic plan for how we are going to get those folks on board and how we're going to pay for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jimmy, would you like to go next, please?
Sure. So when it comes to crime, both violent and property, it's not just a Murray Hill problem. It's a problem that every neighborhood faces. Crime is just one of those things that we will always see. But the best way for us to approach it and to try and reduce it to its barest levels is to make sure that we're not just looking at city council to lead, but we also need the mayor's office, the sheriff's office, the school board, we need the state attorney's office, we need the public defender, and we need everyone working together in lockstep so that we are looking for ways to address the systemic problems that we've seen continue to create the crimes that we have here in Jacksonville. We have generational systemic issues that we still have yet to completely face. And I believe that's why we're still seeing the issues that we're seeing. And frankly, Jacksonville's still growing, so we have time now to finally start working together and making sure those issues are finally taken care of. It's going to take getting involved with the community and making sure that we have one single response for how we're going to deal with infrastructure disparity, for making sure that we're able to put more jobs and businesses in some of the retail industries and retail areas like we have here, right here in Murray Hill. And we need to make sure that we have oversight of the agencies that are supposed to be making sure that a lot of these programs are implemented. You know, the good thing about city council is we're supposed to be an oversight. We're supposed to be the watchdog. And if we have programs that are implemented by the mayor or different agencies that have recently been created that are supposed to be doing these things, making sure that we have after-school activities, making sure that we have the ability to provide an outlet for young people and for even those that are looking for a job to be able to find one of those things, it's going to be up to us in city council to make sure that those programs are actually getting to the right people and doing the right things. And as someone who was a naval officer and understands, you know, what it means to be in accountability and what it means to provide oversight, I'm willing to do that, and I want to make sure that we have as few crimes possible. Thanks so much.
Henry, you're up.
Crime it's everywhere. It's in Murray Hill, it's in Ortega, it's in Argyle, where I live. It's on the north side of Jacksonville. It's everywhere. And as long as you've got people with the wrong heart, you're going to have crime. The Sheriff's Department, they are not the preventers of crime, as Sonny said earlier. They are the people to keep the law and order. And they do need the resources to do that. And in order to put enough police officers on the street, we need to fund the police department, the JSO, in our budget that we put out so that they have enough to hire good quality police officers. We're one of the lowest paid in the state in the JSO. And it takes a year to get a police officer trained. It costs us about $150,000 per police officer. And then we get them in place, and a couple of years down the road, they start getting enticements from other areas and a lot of them leave. That is part of the problem. Another thing that I would encourage that we did is to get the faith-based community involved in it, as well as get the business community involved in it. Part of the problem with the crime that we have is we have some young people that don't have anything to do. So they just get around, they hang out, and they decide, well, you know what, let's go do this. And they take a wrong turn. If we have a way to capture that before it happens, and we get the community involved, I think we can reduce that. When I was a kid, we didn't even lock our front door in Springfield. And then one day somebody's house was broken into, and then we put a key under the mat and everybody in the neighborhood knew where it was, okay? But the point I'm trying to make is we knew where the kids were, we knew what was going on, and parents of my friends, if my parents weren't around, they would really serve the disciplinary action to me and then tell my folks, and then I would face the judgment again. But we need total involvement from everybody in the communities around Jacksonville. Thank you.
Randy, you're up.
I agree with a lot that has been already said. We don't have enough police officers. Not only do we not have enough police officers for our how many people we have in our city, we don't have enough police officers because we are a very large city, and so it's hard to go from one end of Jacksonville to the other, you know, in terms of protection. But I tell you what, crime is our number one problem in Jacksonville. And as it's been said, it's been going on for quite some time. We have a large murder rate, as you well know. And I remember when I first started on this path, people were saying, well, you know, Randy, we have 2 Jacksonvilles. And that's the problem, guys. We have one Jacksonville. And we have to start dealing and addressing the stuff that's going on in the northwest of our city. And now we're seeing it, so that's zone 4. So what's happening in zone 4 is starting to penetrate in zone 5. What's happening in zone 5 is starting to penetrate in zone 4. So it's a problem. And I will tell you, the sheriff is very much on board. And the city council, we're the funder, where we keep things, we're checks and balances, but we are the ones that fund these programs. And the sheriff is very much a part of, and the mayor, they're doing a great job. They're putting what is called a shot spotter in the northwest quadrant. I don't know if you've heard about that. And what that's done is there are microphones all over that area, and it's been able to identify when a shot is made, and it can tell you the gun, the caliber, you name it. And that's starting to help that area, because now police officers, in 30 seconds, they hear the shot. And so they're going into that area immediately. So that's starting to create trust that it was no longer there. So we're making headway, but we got to keep at it. We got to fund it. It's very important. So thanks.
Thank you, guys. We're going to move on to the second question, and we're going to ask Henry if he would be first up here. The question is, how will you help make Murray Hill a place where small businesses can grow and thrive?
Repeat that for me, please.
How will you help make Murray Hill a place where small businesses can grow and thrive?
Like any other neighborhood, any other part of town, you've got to have a reason for businesses to want to come, okay? And the way that you do that is, let me tell you, a city council person can't do that. The neighborhood has to do that. That city council person has to listen. They have to listen to business owners already in place. They have to listen to potential business owners that want to come in here. They have to do the things that we've been talking about with crime. You got to clean that up. People are not going to bring their businesses in an area where there is crime. And it's a total partnership. Local government and the issues that we have in local government, they're not something that your city council representative is going to resolve. They are only there to make sure that the communities and the citizens of those communities get the things that they really need to thrive. Murray Hill used to be its own little town. I don't know if any of you remember that back in the early 1900s, but you know, this little area could be that way again, but it's going to take efforts, not just from the city council, not just from the government, but it's going to take it from the citizens to get involved, become citizens, don't just be dwellers and inhabitants here. Thank you.
Jimmy?
Henry, I must say, if you were around when Murray Hill was its own town, you look fantastic.
I was through.
Well, small businesses, it's near and dear to my heart. And I will say that Jacksonville, I think, is like every other city where it's going to say, we love small businesses. But frankly, I don't know if our policies necessarily reflect that. I feel like if you want to open up a giant Target public shopping center with 1 million different stores in it, the city's going to have no problem helping you out do that. But when we have areas like here in Murray Hill, where we have historical buildings, and where we have limited parking spaces, and where we have limited space in general, it's so much more difficult to open up a place. I mean, we saw that with Fishware Brewery, we saw that with Town, we saw that with a few other of the new locations that are here that are very popular. Can you imagine if there was less red tape, all the different cool things that we could have here in Murray Hill? And not just here in Murray Hill, but all throughout the district. And so I think we need to make sure in City Council that we push for programs that can help provide loans for individuals who might want to open up a small business. Because we got to start putting our money where our mouth is. We're not going to let everyone just open up a giant shopping center. So if you are wanting to open up a minority-owned business or a veteran-owned business, the city should be helping you out throughout the process the entire way. If you have no idea how to start a new business, you should be able to walk into the Office of Economic Development and have programs available to walk you through, hey, here's how you do this stuff. And right now, we're not really having that. And certainly we have the Chamber of Commerce, which is there to help us. But at the end of the day, sometimes you need to be a member, sometimes you need to go through a little bit of a rigmarole, and it becomes a little bit difficult. So I feel like as a city councilman, we can help make sure, or city council person, my mistake, we can make sure that those programs exist, like the ones I just mentioned, to They'll provide loans and provide incentives and provide guidance on how to make sure that places like Murray Hill thrive for years to come, so that we don't just need to continue to go to the giant shopping centers 20 minutes away. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Randy.
Jimmy, that's right on the mark. You know, I tell you, small businesses is the driving force of our economy. I think 67% of small business is what creates jobs, and it's difficult to do that here in Jacksonville. We do not make it easy to start businesses here in Jacksonville. There's a lot of regulations, so we need to streamline our processes. We need to make it easier to do business here. And I've heard that from numerous people, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a retail shop, whatever it may be. They feel like, you know, basically Jacksonville doesn't want their business, and many people have left. I mean, I've heard of, you know, many small restaurateurs leaving Jacksonville, going to Tampa, say, I can't get it done. It's too hard to get a permit. It's too hard to get whatever it may be. It is too hard to do business in Jacksonville. So we need to really look at that. We need to figure out what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. Changes in the future. I can promise you that. So thanks.
Thank you, Sunny.
So right now we have a system for setting up, for doing development that's largely adversarial. That is to say that if you file a permit, people will find out about it after you file the permit, and madness often ensues. And that's part of what's making this process so difficult. And having great businesses is a key piece of each neighborhood. And having residents who are engaged and interested and want to go to those businesses, that's also part of having a really vibrant neighborhood. And so I think we need to look not just at the permitting and all of that, which we definitely do. I agree with both of you on that, because I mean, there's some crazy things like how much paper is involved in our permitting system in 2019 is a little bit insane. But also at how we do development in our neighborhoods. What is it that a neighborhood needs? When you have a great idea, how are we helping you incubate that idea and get people invested in that? I'd like to see us flip it a little bit on our heads. I'd like to see people engaging neighborhoods on their great business ideas on the front end, so that when they go for the permit, there's no surprise. There's no month-long hearing process. I think that small business, when you have in Jacksonville, I've lived a lot of places. One of the things that I think is really special about Jacksonville, one of the reasons I'm a Jacksonvillian by choice, is that we do believe in the power of great ideas. And if you have a good idea, whether it's, you know, making a Christian rock venue, or the best Tex-Mex anywhere, or a new brewery, which I think we are gonna become the Florida's brewery capital. You can make it happen here, but you can't make it happen easily, and you can't make it happen alone. And those are the things that we've got to start working on, because there are good ideas everywhere, and that's how Jacksonville is gonna become its best self.
Thank you. Moving on, Jimmy, I'm going to ask you to respond to this question first. Our local parks have suffered from vandalism, litter, and lack of maintenance. How will you make sure that our parks are safe places for families to enjoy?
That's an excellent question, especially as my friend Jose walks in here. He has been pushing very hard to make sure that all city council candidates are heading up to the Murray Hill Park up here to see the vandalism and the activities that have happened at the park, and pushing us to discuss, you know, issues like, you know, what we can do more for the parks. And I'm glad you came in when you did, and I'm glad you asked that question. We as city council certainly have oversight over the parks department. We can provide more funding all we want, and we can make sure that parks get everything that they need. But if we are seeing vandalism across the board in these areas, then it becomes difficult as a city. And so we, again, as city council members, need to make sure that we have, you know, that we're working with JSO, that we're working with community leaders, and that we're trying to make sure that, hey, if you're going to run this park, you know, whether it's the athletic association or whatever else, we'll give you the ability to sort of bring out, you know, the equipment every Saturday for the kids to play with, things like that. So it's the best way to make sure that all the equipment that's needed to make those parks more fun and active based. We have someone who's going to be able to kind of keep that under lock and key, and then bring it out for those days and those events when we have stuff. But the condition of the parks overall, that really should be something that the Parks Department is able to quickly respond to. And if we're not seeing the Parks Department come out there and say, oh yeah, the basketball hoop's looking poor, or the pavement's not very good, or we're not seeing a lot of the grass being cut, and that's something that we as council members really need to be on top of. And we need to put our thumb on them and say, hey, we really need you to get to this park on this day. And if there's a problem with the scheduling, then I guess that means there's a problem with the budget. And we need to make sure that we have, the ability to say to them, if you're gonna provide us with a schedule on when you're gonna do X, Y, and Z, if you're not executing it effectively, well then we got a problem. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Randy, would you like to respond?
Well, Jacksonville has numerous parks. I think it's a city with one of the largest number of parks in the country. But there's nothing worse than having a park that's not maintained. It creates blight and it's unsafe. And we have that problem in some of our parks. So the question is, what are we going to do about it, which is what you've been asked of me. We need to maintain them. We need to fund the maintenance of it. We need to make sure that we have security. If we can't afford security, then we need to figure out another way. I know that I think we just had vandalism, as I understand, of the Murrayville Park just this past week. So it's not okay. We have to make it a priority. I mean, there are lots of priorities, but what we're creating is an unsafe environment for our people of our community. So I was thinking that, and in fact, I was talking to Kevin Gazelle actually, and I said, what if we can't get the police there? If we don't have police there, what about cameras? I know they're talking about that in the Northwest Quadrant. Now that we have microphones, we're thinking, what about cameras? We've got to come up with a solution where we can make it a deterrent so that we don't continue with the vandalism, so that the vandalism doesn't continue. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Sunny?
So my quick answer is data and technology, which I know for a person who works for Google probably doesn't surprise any of you. But I think that the reality is we have lived in a squeaky wheel sort of environment for way too long when it comes to our parks. So if you are in a neighborhood where you have a lot of people who are squeaky wheels, you get it cleaned and you get it mowed and you get it maintained. And if you live in a neighborhood where people might be too busy or that's not their top priority because they're more worried about other things, other more basic needs, then you don't get those things. You only get one basketball hoop, not two. And I think that we've got to get away from that and start thinking with numbers because we know when parks need to be mowed. We know when park equipment needs to be replaced. We probably have a pretty good idea of what are the types of environments and opportunities that lead to vandalism. So we need to be putting our data to work for us to maintain our parks better. And then technology is a great way to figure out cameras, provide opportunities. You put them in the lights so that they're less vulnerable because of course if you put a camera and it's easy to see, it can be gone in 5 seconds. And cameras are only as good as how quickly they can deliver the information to you. But a park is really about the community that's around it, and do we understand how we are meeting those needs? So I think you all are really lucky. You have someone who's an advocate for one of your parks and is putting that to work, and he is creating a community around that park. But every park needs to reflect what the community needs. And I think that if we do a better job of understanding those things and helping the Parks Department, we'll actually end up saving ourselves money because we'll be doing things on a schedule, we'll be getting things done from the Northwest Quadrant to the Southeast Quadrant, and it will be fair.
Thank you. Henry, any thoughts on this?
You've heard 3 different opinions, and I'm just going to tell you, I kind of agree with some of each one. We do have more parks than most states. I heard the number one time that we have more parks than New York City has, okay, in Jacksonville, Florida. And when you have vandalism, a police officer is not going to be able to respond to that if they're working an assault case somewhere. So we've got to have better ways to do it than just depend on the Jacksonville Sheriff's Department. Technology is by far, with the advances that we have in technology today, that certainly is a way to look at, or a thing to look at first and see what kind of technology is out there. This technology that Randy was talking about a minute ago about shots fired, that blew me away when I saw that. And I'm sure that there is technology that we can put, whether it's cameras or whether it's some type of motion sensing technology, to where we could stay on top of that. And also working with the Parks Department and making sure that they understand what we want done as representatives of this community, and for them to get involved, and then we follow up with them to make sure that they do due diligence in doing their job. They work for us just like city council members will work for you. So I think technology is definitely a key to that. And vandalism in parks, you've got to just try different things until you find something that sticks. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Next question, I'm going to ask Randy, if you would respond first. In your opinion, what is the biggest issue facing Murray Hill, and what will you do to address it?
I think there's a lot of great things going on in Murray Hill. So I'm not trying to evade the question, but I think there's a lot of good stuff going on. I think it's safety. If I were to say one thing about Murray Hill, I think it's public safety. And to address it, I think we need more police officers. I really do. And I do think we could use, just as we talked about, some either cameras or some other deterrent that will prevent crime in this area. But in working together, Sunny said it right. We have to have neighborhood watches that really watch over each other and make sure that they know what their neighbor's doing. And it does take a village. It really does. All of us takes a village, and that would be the answer to the crime. We need to fund police. We need to come up with some sort of technological approach that may be cheaper. And then we need to watch over it. We need to watch each other, make sure that everybody else is, okay. That's it.
Sunny?
So I spent a lot of time walking last week, and I talked to a lot of people in Murray Hill, and I feel like rather than me tell you what I think Murray Hill needs, I'm going to tell you what Murray Hill thinks that Murray Hill needs, which to me it really was about how do we invest in the residential neighborhood so that it's walkable, it's safe, it's easy, and people can really enjoy the sense of community. Murray Hill is in this special moment when you know something is happening here. I mean, you drive down the street, you see the new things that are happening, you see the signs for the cleanup, you see people planting, you see the new thing, and people want to be part of that. And they also want better connection to their neighbors. And when you walk around the neighborhood, there's lots of streets that don't have sidewalks. There's Hamilton has become a complete go-through where people are going like 60 and 70 miles an hour, so kids can't play. And I think that we have got to look at how do we make this a truly livable neighborhood, and I think that will help. I think you're right, Randy, that safety is the key piece of this, but it's not just safety from crime, it's your physical safety every day when you're doing the things that you love to do in your neighborhood. Walk, visit your commercial district, enjoy your neighbors, play in the street. I mean, we all played in the street as kids, and many of these streets have that, but they don't have the function, they don't have the infrastructure to be able to do that safely. So I would love to see us put some money into making this a walkable, environmental neighborhood that really feels like all of the other neighborhoods that are, and trees. Raps Relief Project, I know that they were looking to move it up here. There's over $20 million in the tree fund. You all should be getting some of that money too. I think that if you do those things, that you will see that this neighborhood has everything going for it.
Thank you. Henry, thoughts on biggest issues facing Murray Hill?
In my opinion, public safety is probably the number one issue. And unfortunately, I think that's probably the number one issue all over Jacksonville, Florida. And public safety is more than fighting crime. Public safety is how people drive on your streets, the Autobahn right out here that we have, when people drive up and down that street. And we have an Autobahn in just about every community in this entire district. We have a lot of work to do, and we have got to provide the funding to the agencies that are responsible for making sure that our neighborhoods are what we want them to be. People make a choice to live in Murray Hill. They should have the same protections here and the same access to funds as people that live in Argyle or people that choose to live in Ortega or anywhere in the district. Every area, every community should be looked after from the same viewpoint that we look at the others. And we have to get a handle on our crimes, our assault crimes, our break-ins, our burglaries, home burglaries. I've had 2 houses on my street in the last 3 months broken into. So public safety to me is definitely the number one area that we really have to address. And it's not something that you just go to a meeting and say, okay, public safety is bad in Murray Hill, guys, help us out. It's something that you have to work on, and you have to be diligent, and you have to participate in fixing it every single day until you get a wrap on it, and then you have to put your thumb on it and keep it down. Thank you.
Thank you. Jimmy?
That's a great question, because I think one of the things that's potentially an issue for Murray Hill, but is also one of its biggest benefits, is growth. You know, this area is doing quite well. People want to move into this area. They want to go to the restaurants and bars and the shops and go to the boutiques here in this area. And so I think that's a great thing for us as potentially future councilperson to be a part of. We've got an awesome new area that's growing and doing quite well. But in that growth, I think we need to recognize that we've seen areas like Five Points and Avondale grow as well. And in that growth, there are a lot of troubles with traffic, with making sure there's too many cars, with making sure that people aren't speeding through all the streets, just as we sort of spoke about. Sidewalks would be great, but it might be difficult to do. I don't know if the city owns the easement on some of those properties. So now you might get into a giant fight with property owners over building sidewalks. So it's an awesome solution if it could be done. But frankly, one of the other issues that I see involving growth is a lot of the residents of Murray Hill who have been here, 2nd generation, 3rd generation, 4th generation, a lot of them might be getting priced out. And we need to make sure that this is going to be a livable, fantastic new community that's taken from the old and the new. And we need to make sure that we have programs in place and assistance from the government to make sure that there's affordable housing, to make sure that people aren't going to lose their home because somebody wants to kind of come in and force them out. And that's something that we really need to be mindful of, because a lot of neighborhoods in Jacksonville are facing similar problems. And so as growth comes, and the awesome benefits of putting up new cool things, which we should always be in favor of, I feel like, as council people, we also need to be mindful of the fact that there's people that are currently here now who might be a little bit worried that they might be next to have to leave. So we need to make this community for everyone. And I do think that's a huge thing that we need to keep an eye on. Thanks so much.
All right, we are just about out of time for this evening. I want to make sure that we give plenty of time for the council candidates to answer individual questions, and they've all agreed to make themselves available after this forum for you guys to meet and greet with them in the lobby. So on behalf of Murray Hill Preservation Association, I want to thank all of you for not only being here tonight, but also for your willingness to serve the community. And thank you guys for being here to hear their question and answer. Hear their answers to my questions, I guess. So with that, I'm going to end the program and invite you guys to meet the candidates in the lobby and ask them any other questions you may have. Thank you guys.